My name is Cecil, 34 years old, and family means everything to me until it doesn't. When my parents asked to borrow my Audi A4 for a weekend with my sister Natalie and her kids, I handed over the keys without hesitation. How was I supposed to know that by Monday morning, I'd be staring at an $1,800 towing bill, answering calls from the police, and discovering a betrayal that cut deeper than any stranger could inflict? The moment I confronted them changed our family dynamic forever. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you've ever had family take advantage of your generosity, hit that like and subscribe button. You're definitely going to relate to this. I've always been the responsible one. That's not me patting myself on the back. It's just a fact that's defined my entire life. Growing up in Portland, I was the kid who saved his allowance while his sister spent hers before the day was over. Now at 34, I'm an IT project manager at a mid-sized tech company in Seattle. Nothing glamorous, but I've built a stable life for myself. My one-bedroom apartment isn't fancy, but it's in a decent neighborhood with a small balcony where I grow herbs and tomatoes during our brief Northwest summers. I pay my bills on time, have a modest retirement account, and treat myself occasionally to nice dinners or weekend trips to the mountains. My most prized possession is my car, a midnight blue Audi A4 that I purchased 3 years ago after saving diligently for the down payment. It's not the newest model, but it's well maintained and represents years of hard work. When I drive it, I feel a sense of accomplishment that no one can take away. It's the first truly nice thing I've ever owned, and I take meticulous care of it. Then there's my family. My parents, Richard and Martha, still live in the same 3-bedroom house in Portland, where Natalie and I grew up. Dad retired from his job as a high school history teacher 5 years ago, and Mom worked as a nurse until retirement last year. They were always good providers, making sure we never went without necessities. But the emotional landscape of our family was always unbalanced in a way that became our unspoken normal. From as early as I can remember, Natalie was the sun around which our family orbited. 2 years younger than me, she had this uncanny ability to command attention in any room. When she was 7 and broke her arm falling from the backyard tree, I told her not to climb. My parents canceled our planned trip to see my spelling bee finals. When she decided last minute she wanted to attend community college after swearing she'd never need higher education, my college fund was suddenly split in half because Natalie needs support right now. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. She can be genuinely funny, spontaneous, and when she's not focused on herself, she can be incredibly generous. But there's always been this undercurrent of entitlement in her personality that my parents never addressed. While I got lectures about responsibility, Natalie got bailouts. When I started working at 16 to save for college, Natalie was given a car for her 16th birthday because she needs to focus on her social development. One memory stands out vividly. My high school graduation fell on the same weekend as Natalie's dance recital. Instead of asking Natalie to miss one recital so both kids could have a parent present at significant life events, my mom attended Natalie's recital while my dad came to my graduation alone, leaving halfway through to make it to the bassin. Second half of the recital. I sat through my graduation dinner at Olive Garden with just my dad, who checked his watch every 15 minutes. When we got home, the house was filled with flowers and congratulatory balloons, all for Natalie's successful recital. Despite all this, I've tried to maintain a good relationship with my family. Every Sunday, I call my parents for a chat, though the conversation inevitably turns to Natalie's latest drama or achievement. I visit for major holidays and birthdays, bringing thoughtful gifts that often get overshadowed by whatever crisis Natalie is navigating at the moment. Natalie got married right out of college to Brad, a guy who worked in car sales. They had 3 kids in quick succession: Emma 8, Liam 6, and Zoe 3, before divorcing 2 years ago. The divorce was messy, with Natalie claiming Brad had abandoned his responsibilities. From what little Brad told me before he moved to California, the reality was more complicated, with Natalie's spending habits and refusal to work creating constant tension. Since the divorce, Natalie has lived in a rental house that my parents subsidize, working part-time at a boutique while my parents provide free childcare. Every few months, there's a new financial crisis that somehow requires family intervention. Her car needs repairs. The kids need new winter clothes. The boutique cut her hours. Each time my parents dip into their retirement savings to help her, while gently suggesting I might chip in for the kids, despite my own financial obligations. Through it all, I've tried to be the good brother and son. I take my nieces and nephew out for special days when I visit Portland. I send birthday and Christmas gifts. I listen to my parents' concerns about Natalie without pointing out the patterns I've seen my entire life. I've swallowed my resentment so many times that it's become part of my personality. The understanding brother, the reliable son, the uncle who shows up. My girlfriend Megan, whom I've been dating for 2 years, sees through it all. She's witnessed family gatherings where my accomplishments at work were glossed over while everyone fawned over Natalie getting a 10-cent raise. She's seen my face fall when my parents call with what sounds like concern, only to ask if I can help Natalie with her car insurance this month. After each interaction, Megan gently suggests that perhaps my family dynamic isn't healthy, that maybe I deserve better treatment. I usually defend them, saying, "That's just how family is," while knowing deep down that families shouldn't make one child feel perpetually secondary. It was a Friday afternoon when my phone rang displaying my mother's name. I was wrapping up work planning a quiet weekend with Megan, maybe catching a movie, trying that new ramen place downtown, and tackling some overdue home projects. My finger hovered over the answer button for an extra beat, a subconscious hesitation born from experience. With a deep breath, I answered with an upbeat, "Hey Mom, how's it going?" "Cecil, honey." My mother's voice had that particular tone. I'd come to recognize the one that meant she wanted something. "I was just thinking about you. How's work going? And Megan, is she still enjoying that nursing job?" The small talk continued for a few minutes, with my mother showing more interest in my life than usual. I should have recognized the warning sign right there. After about 5 minutes of uncharacteristic questions about my job and apartment, she finally arrived at the purpose of her call. "So, Cecil, your father and I were thinking of taking the grandkids for a special weekend. You know how much they love the coast, and we found this lovely little rental house right on the beach. It would be so good for them to have some quality time with us, especially with everything they've been through with the divorce." "That sounds great, Mom," I replied genuinely. "I'm sure they'll have a fantastic time." "Yes, well, there's a small issue." Her voice took on the slight tremble that always preceded a request. "Natalie's minivan is in the shop again. Something with the transmission, I think. And you know our car just doesn't have enough room for all 3 car seats plus the luggage and beach toys." My stomach tightened as I anticipated what was coming next. "We were wondering if we could possibly borrow your car for the weekend, just from tomorrow morning until Sunday evening. It would mean so much to the children, Cecil. They've been looking forward to seeing the tide pools all week." I hesitated. My car wasn't just transportation. It was my pride and joy, the result of years of careful saving and planning. I'd never loaned it to anyone before, not even Megan. "Where exactly are you planning to go?" I asked, trying to sound casual rather than interrogative. "Just to that little town, what's it called, Cannon Beach. The rental is right there, so we wouldn't be driving much once we arrived. Just straight there and back, I promise." I ran through mental calculations. Cannon Beach was about a 4-hour drive from Portland. My car was in perfect condition, with new tires and a recent oil change. My parents were generally careful drivers, if a bit distracted sometimes. And it was for the kids after all. "What about Dad's SUV?" I asked. "Wouldn't that fit everyone?" "Oh, it's having that strange noise in the engine again," Mom replied quickly. "Your father doesn't think it's safe for a long drive with the children." Something felt off about the request, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Maybe it was just my lingering resentment coloring normal family interactions. Maybe this was a chance to show I could be generous without expecting anything in return. "Okay," I said finally. "I guess I can loan you the car for the weekend, but I'd need it back by Sunday night at the latest. I have an early meeting on Monday that I can't miss." The explosion of gratitude from my mother was almost embarrassing. You'd think I'd offered a kidney rather than the temporary use of a vehicle. She promised profuse care, minimal mileage, and a full tank of gas upon return. As the call ended, I felt a mixture of warmth at having helped, and unease at having given up something so personal. When I called my father an hour later to arrange the logistics of the handover, his approach was typically different from my mother's. There were no effusive thanks, just a practical discussion of when he'd pick up the car. "We'll swing by your place around 9 tomorrow morning," he said. "That work for you?" I agreed, and then added, "I'll make sure to show you any quirks the car has. And I'll have the insurance papers in the glove compartment just in case." "Cecil, I've been driving for 50 years," my father replied with a hint of irritation. "I think I can handle your car for a weekend without a tutorial." I bit back a response about how driving experience didn't negate the usefulness of knowing a car's particular characteristics. Instead, I simply said, "Of course, Dad. See you tomorrow." The next morning, my parents arrived with Natalie and the kids in tow. While my mother gave me a warm hug, and my nieces and nephews swarmed me with their usual energy, Natalie offered a distracted "Hey bro" while texting on her phone. She didn't make eye contact, let alone thank me for loaning the car that would make their weekend possible. As I handed over the keys to my father, I couldn't help providing a few instructions, despite his earlier dismissal. "The gas gauge reads a little low when it's still a quarter full, so don't worry if it seems to drop quickly at first. The navigation system sometimes takes a minute to boot up. Oh, and the back right passenger door needs a firm close to latch properly." My father took the keys with an impatient nod. Got it. We're not going to break your precious car, Cecil." "I didn't say you would," I replied, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. "Just trying to be helpful." As they transferred the kids' car seats into my Audi, a process that made me wince as they struggled with the hooks against my leather seats, my mother approached me again. "This means so much to us, Cecil. You've always been so responsible, so reliable." She patted my cheek like I was still 10 years old. "Natalie's been having such a hard time lately. This trip will really lift her spirits." I nodded, feeling that familiar twist in my gut, the implicit comparison, the subtle reinforcement that Natalie's needs would always take priority. Still, I smiled and wished them a great weekend. As they pulled away in my car, my father already adjusting the seat position I'd so carefully optimized Natalie in the passenger seat. With her feet potentially on my dashboard, Megan came up beside me and slipped her hand into mine. "You know they're taking advantage of you again, right?" she said gently. "They're family," I replied automatically. "It's just a car for a weekend. No big deal." But as we walked back to my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. What should have been a simple favor felt weighted with years of imbalance. I tried to push it aside, focusing instead on our weekend plans, now adjusted to accommodate being carless for 2 days. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this gesture would finally earn me the same consideration that seemed to be automatically granted to Natalie. Maybe this time, I wouldn't end up regretting my generosity. Saturday morning felt strange without the option of driving anywhere. Megan and I adapted our plans walking to the farmer's market rather than driving to the big one across town. We picked up fresh produce and artisan bread, then stopped at a cafe for lunch. Throughout the day, I found myself checking my phone periodically, half expecting some update from my parents about their trip. By mid-afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I sent a casual text to my mother. "Hope you all arrived safely. How's the beach?" Simple, non-intrusive. Just checking in. An hour passed with no response. Then 2 hours. By evening, I received a brief reply. "All fine. Kids loving beach. Talk later." No details, no reciprocal question about my day, no photo of my nieces and nephew enjoying the tide pools they were supposedly so excited about. "They're probably just busy with the kids," I told Megan, as we prepared dinner in my kitchen. 3 young children at the beach is a handful. Megan raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, focusing on chopping vegetables for our stir-fry. Her silence spoke volumes. Saturday night, I sent another text, this time to my father. "How's my car handling the coastal roads?" I tried to keep it light, hoping humor might elicit more response than my previous attempt. This time, the reply came faster, but was equally terse. "Car's fine. Stop worrying." I set my phone down with a frown. The response felt dismissive, almost annoyed, as if my interest in the welfare of my own vehicle was somehow inappropriate. Megan noticed my expression and sat beside me on the couch. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing," I replied automatically. Then, reconsidering just my dad being my dad. I ask about my car, and he acts like I'm being neurotic for caring. Megan squeezed my hand. It's not neurotic to care about your expensive possession that someone else is using. That's normal. Sunday morning came with no updates from the coast. I busied myself with cleaning my apartment, doing laundry, and helping Megan prepare for her upcoming work week. By afternoon, with still no substantive communication from my family, I decided to call rather than text. My mother's phone rang through to voicemail. So did my father's. I tried Natalie next with the same result. A knot of worry began forming in my stomach. Were they okay? Had something happened? Or were they simply ignoring me? Around 6 in the evening, when they should have been preparing to return, if they planned to honor our agreement about returning Sunday night, I tried calling again. Still no answer from anyone. I left voicemails for both my parents, trying to keep my tone casual, while clearly asking when they planned to return the car. By 9 o'clock, with no return calls, I was pacing my living room. Megan watched me with concern. They're not answering, they haven't called, and they're supposed to have my car back tonight, I said, running a hand through my hair. I have that meeting with the VP tomorrow morning. I can't miss it. Can you take an Uber? Megan suggested. It's across town at 7:30 in the morning. The surge pricing would be insane if I could even get one. I checked my phone again, finding no new notifications. I don't understand why they can't at least text me back. Just as I was considering more drastic measures, perhaps calling the rental property, if I could somehow figure out where exactly they were staying, my phone pinged with a text message. I practically lunged for it. The message from my mother read simply, "Staying one more night. Back tomorrow. Kids having too much fun to leave." No apology. No acknowledgement that this deviation from our agreement might inconvenience me. No question about whether this change of plans was acceptable. Just a unilateral decision, communicated as an afterthought. I typed and deleted 3 different responses, ranging from understanding to frustrated, before settling on, "I need the car for an important meeting tomorrow morning. Please try to be back by 7 a.m. No response came to this message. The knot in my stomach tightened. "I can't believe this," I said to Megan, who had been watching my reaction. They didn't even ask if it was okay. They just decided. "Call your coworker, Jason," Megan suggested. "Doesn't he live nearby? Maybe he could give you a ride?" I nodded, and made the call, swallowing my pride to ask a favor from a colleague. Jason agreed readily enough, though. I would have to leave 30 minutes earlier than planned to accommodate his schedule. Problem temporarily solved, but the bitter taste remained. As I prepared for bed that night, checking and rechecking that my presentation materials were ready for the morning meeting, I found myself dwelling on Megan's earlier comment about my family taking advantage of me. It wasn't the car itself, though I did care deeply about it. It was the pattern. The assumption that my needs, my property, my time were all less important and more flexible than anyone else's in the family, especially Natalie's. When they get back, I told Megan, as we turned out the lights, "I'm going to say something. This isn't right." "Good," she replied, simply kissing me goodnight. I lay awake, long after her breathing had deepened into sleep, rehearsing in my mind what I would say to my parents. How I would be firm, but not angry. Clear, but not accusatory. How I would finally establish that while I loved them dearly, I deserved the same respect they automatically gave my sister. Sleep came fitfully interrupted by anxiety dreams about missed meetings and car accidents. By morning I was exhausted but resolved. I would get through this important presentation, then address the family situation when they returned with my car. It was time for things to change. The insistent buzz of my phone pulled me from sleep at 5:47 a.m., a full 13 minutes before my alarm was set to go off. Groggily, I reached for it, expecting to see a text from my parents about returning the car. Instead, I found 4 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, all from earlier in the morning. Who calls at 4 a.m. unless it's an emergency? My heart rate accelerated as I sat up, immediately alert. I tapped on the first unknown number to see if they'd left a voicemail. They had. "This message is for Cecil Thompson. This is Officer Ramirez with the Clatsop County Sheriff's Department. We need you to contact us regarding your vehicle. A 2019 Audi A4 license plate, WXY789. Please call us back at this number as soon as possible. The police. My mind raced through worst-case scenarios. An accident injures my nieces and nephew in hospital. With trembling fingers, I checked the second voicemail. Mr. Thompson, this is Pacific Northwest Towing and Recovery. Your vehicle was impounded Saturday night from the Seaside Lights Casino parking lot. You'll need to come in person with identification and proof of ownership to reclaim it. Our facility opens at 8 a.m. Current charges are at $1,800, including towing and storage fees. This amount will increase by $150 per day. Casino towing, $1,800. None of this made sense. My parents were supposed to be at a beach rental with the kids, not at a casino. And why would my car be impounded unless? I called my mother's number immediately, straight to voicemail. My father's phone, same result. Natalie's phone, no answer. I sent urgent texts to all three: emergency. Call me immediately about my car. I rushed to wake Megan, who listened to the voicemails with widening eyes. What the hell were they doing at a casino with 3 young children, she asked, echoing my own thoughts. I don't know, but I need to call the police back right now, I replied, already dialing. Officer Ramirez explained the situation with professional detachment. Your vehicle was reported abandoned in the Seaside Lights Casino parking lot Saturday evening. Security footage shows 3 adults and 3 children exiting the vehicle at approximately 3 p.m. Saturday. At 11 p.m., security noted the vehicle had been in the same spot for over 8 hours without movement. When no one returned to the vehicle by 1 a.m., they called us, and we authorized the tow. But my parents were using my car. I explained, my voice rising with confusion and distress. They were supposed to be staying at a beach rental house with my nieces and nephew. Sir, I can't speak to their plans, the officer replied. I can only tell you that the vehicle was impounded according to protocol for abandoned vehicles on private property. You'll need to contact Pacific Northwest Towing to arrange recovery. My head was spinning. I thanked the officer and immediately called the towing company, who confirmed the $1,800 fee, $500 for the tow itself. $75 per day for storage. Now at 3 days, including today, plus administrative fees and taxes. They would only release the vehicle to me as the registered owner with payment in full. I have a critical work meeting, I told Megan, checking the time. 6:15 a.m. I can't miss it. This project could mean a promotion. But my car. Go to your meeting, Megan said, firmly. I'll call in sick to work and start figuring this out. Jason will be here in 30 minutes to pick you up. I nodded gratefully, rushing to shower and dress, while my mind raced with questions. Why were they at a casino instead of the beach house they'd described? Where were they now? Why hadn't they called me when the car was towed? And most importantly, where were my nieces and nephew during all this? The workday passed in a blur. Despite somehow making it through my presentation on autopilot, I couldn't focus on anything except the situation with my car. During every break, I checked my phone, finding no responses from my family. By lunch, I gave up any pretense of working and took the rest of the day off, citing a family emergency. Megan picked me up from work in an Uber, her expression grim. Still no word from your family, she reported. I've called them repeatedly. I even tried calling Brad, your sister's ex, to see if somehow the kids were with him. No answer there either. We headed directly to the impound lot, an hour's drive from Seattle. Upon arrival, I found my beautiful Audi looking distinctly worse for wear. The front bumper had a new scratch about 8 inches long. The interior was littered with fast food wrappers, empty soda cups, and what looked like ground-in chocolate on the back seats. The pristine floor mats I'd purchased specially for the car were stained with what smelled like spilled milk. Trembling with a mixture of anger and disbelief, I opened the glove compartment to retrieve my insurance and registration papers. There, I found something even more bewildering. A parking ticket issued Saturday afternoon in Seaside, Oregon, 2 miles from the casino. And underneath that, crumpled receipts from the Seaside Lights Casino restaurant and bar with charges for multiple alcoholic beverages totaling over $100. They took my car to a casino, I said to Megan, my voice flat with shock. Not to a beach house with the kids, To a casino, and then they abandoned it there. The impound clerk was sympathetic but firm. I needed to pay $1,850. The fee had indeed increased by the time we arrived to retrieve my vehicle. This would deplete nearly all of my emergency savings fund money I'd been carefully setting aside for unexpected situations. But certainly not this kind of unexpected situation. As I handed over my credit card, a fresh wave of calls to my family went unanswered. It was now late afternoon on Monday, and I had heard nothing from any of them since the terse text Sunday night about staying an extra day. After completing the mountain of paperwork required to release my car, I stood in the impound lot, keys in hand, staring at my Audi. The car that represented years of disciplined saving and careful maintenance now returned to me damaged dirty, with an emptied bank account as a bonus. "What do you want to do, Megan?" asked quietly, standing beside me. I took a deep breath, the weight of decades of similar incidents pressing down on me, each one excused or minimized in the name of family harmony. Each one leaving me feeling diminished and foolish for expecting better. "I want answers," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, "and then I want them to make this right. All of it." I got into my car grimacing at the sticky substance on the steering wheel and headed for my parents' house in Portland. After years of swallowing my feelings for the sake of peace, something had finally broken inside me. Whatever explanation they offered, whatever tears or excuses or minimizations came, I was done accepting less than I deserved from the people who should have been my greatest supporters. The drive to my parents' house in Portland took just under 3 hours, giving me plenty of time to organize my thoughts and manage the fury that threatened to overwhelm my reason. Megan followed behind in the Uber we'd taken to the impound lot, insisting she wouldn't leave me to face this alone. Part of me wanted to protect her from the ugliness that was sure to ensue, but a larger part was profoundly grateful for her unwavering support. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, I spotted my mother's car and Natalie's minivan, the supposedly broken-down minivan that had necessitated borrowing my car in the first place. A flash of fresh anger surged through me at this visual confirmation of their deception. I took a moment to examine my car's exterior more carefully in the daylight. Beyond the scratch on the front bumper, I discovered a small dent on the passenger door that hadn't been there before. Inside, the mess was even more apparent than it had seemed at the impound lot. Sticky residue covered the center console, crumbs were ground into the carpet, and there was a distinct smell of sour milk emanating from somewhere in the back seat. My immaculate car now resembled the aftermath of a kindergarten snack time. Megan arrived just as I finished my inspection, and together we approached the front door. Before I could even knock it, swung open to reveal my mother, her expression, a mixture of surprise and something that looked suspiciously like guilt. "Cecil, we didn't expect you. We were just about to call." "Were you?" I cut her off, my voice controlled but tight. "That's interesting because I've been calling and texting all of you since early this morning, with no response." She stepped back, allowing us to enter the living room where my father sat in his recliner watching a baseball game. He looked up with mild irritation at the interruption. "Cecil," he acknowledged with a nod, "what brings you down here? Thought you had some big meeting today." "I did have a big meeting. I managed to make it there despite having no car, because you decided to keep it an extra day without asking me." I remained standing too, wound up to sit. But that's actually the least of the issues we need to discuss right now. My mother perched nervously on the edge of the sofa. "What do you mean, honey? We were going to bring your car back today. We're just waiting for Natalie to get back from taking Emma to her friend's house." "My car," I said slowly, "is not here. It's been in an impound lot since Saturday night after being towed from the Seaside Lights casino parking lot. A casino, Mom, not a beach rental house with tide pools for the kids." The color drained from my mother's face. My father's attention was suddenly fully engaged, the baseball game forgotten. "They called you already?" he asked, his tone suggesting this was merely an inconvenient acceleration of a timeline rather than a shocking revelation. "The police called me," I replied, emphasis on police. "At 4 in the morning, followed by the towing company. Would you like to explain why my car was abandoned at a casino when you told me you were taking the kids to a beach house?" My parents exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. This wasn't news to them. They knew exactly what had happened, but had hoped to control when and how. I found out, if I found out at all. Well, my mother began, her hands twisting in her lap. We did start out planning to go to the beach house, but on the way there, Natalie mentioned that there was this new casino resort in Seaside with a wonderful children's play area. The kids were getting restless in the car, and we thought it might be nice to stop for lunch. And somehow, lunch turned into abandoning my car in the parking lot for so long it got towed. I pressed. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Things got a little complicated. I've got $1,850 worth of complicated charged to my credit card right now, I said. So please enlighten me. After more uncomfortable glances between them, the story gradually emerged, each detail more infuriating than the last. They had indeed started out for Cannon Beach, but Natalie had convinced them that the casino would be more fun for everyone. The supposed children's play area turned out to be a small arcade next to the restaurant, not the supervised childcare facility Natalie had described. Natalie was having such a hard time lately. My mother explained as if this justified everything. The divorce, the financial strain. She just needed a day to unwind, to have some adult time. So you took 3 children under the age of 10 to a casino so Natalie could unwind? I asked incredulously. Your sister deserves some enjoyment in her life, my father said defensively. You don't know how difficult things have been for her. I bit back a retort about knowing exactly how difficult things had been for her, given how often I heard about it. Instead, I focused on the still unexplained abandonment of my car. That doesn't explain why my car was left in the parking lot long enough to be towed. More uncomfortable shifting and glances. Finally, my father spoke. Natalie met someone at the casino, a guy. They hit it off, and he invited her to continue the evening at another venue in town. We had the kids, so we told her to go ahead and have fun. And my car, I prompted, already guessing the answer. Natalie had the keys, my mother admitted quietly. She said she'd only be gone for a little while, so we waited with the children in the restaurant. But she didn't come back. We tried calling her, but her phone was off. So you left my car there and took. What? An Uber back to Portland with 3 children. The absurdity of it was almost laughable. Except there was nothing funny about any of this. We called a taxi to take us to a hotel for the night, my father explained. We figured Natalie would be back by morning, and we'd all drive home then. But she wasn't back by morning, I guessed. My mother's eyes welled with tears. No. She called around noon Sunday to say she was with her new friend and would get a ride back to Portland with him later. She said she'd left your car in the casino parking lot and thought it would be fine there until we could go back for it. And neither of you thought to call me, to tell me my car was sitting abandoned in a casino parking lot, or that it had been towed. The control I'd been maintaining was slipping with each new revelation. We didn't want to worry you, my mother said, her voice small. We thought we could handle it ourselves. Handle it how exactly? By ignoring it and hoping I wouldn't notice my car was missing. We were going to tell you today, my father insisted. We just wanted to figure out how to get the car back first. And who did you think was going to pay the towing and impound fees, I asked, though I already knew the answer. The silence that followed was confirmation enough. They had assumed I would pay it and move on, just like I always did when Natalie's choices created problems. Just like I had been doing my entire life. Where is Natalie now? I demanded. She'll be back soon, my mother said quickly. She just took Emma to... Stop lying to me. I snapped, my patience finally evaporating. You've been lying since Friday. I want the truth. Where is Natalie? After another uncomfortable pause, my father admitted, We're not sure. She was supposed to be back last night, but she texted saying she was staying another night with this new guy, said she'd be back this afternoon. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process the layers of deception and irresponsibility. So let me make sure I understand. You lied about where you were taking my car. You lied about Natalie's minivan being broken down. I gestured toward the driveway where her perfectly functional vehicle Saturday. You allowed Natalie to drive my car when she wasn't on my insurance. You took 3 young children to a casino. Then you abandoned my car in a casino parking lot, never bothered to inform me it had been towed, and were planning to have me pay for all of it without ever telling me the truth. When you put it like that, it sounds terrible, my mother protested weakly. Because it is terrible, I exploded, years of suppressed frustration, finally breaking free. It's selfish and irresponsible and completely disrespectful. Do you have any idea what this has cost me? Not just the money, which is substantial, but the time, the stress having to miss work, having to explain to my boss why I needed to leave early. You've always been so good with money, my father said, as if this were somehow relevant. Natalie isn't as fortunate. She doesn't have savings like you do. That's not fortune, Dad. That's choices. I choose to save. I choose to be responsible. I choose not to abandon other people's property and expect them to clean up my mess. Cecil, my mother pleaded, you need to calm down. This isn't like you. Maybe it should be, I shot back. Maybe if I'd stood up for myself years ago, we wouldn't be here now. Do you know what happened the last time I loaned Natalie money for emergency car repairs? She took a weekend trip to Vancouver with her friends. The time before that, when I helped with her overdue electric bill, she bought a new iPhone. My parents looked genuinely shocked, as if they couldn't believe their perfect daughter would do such things. Or perhaps they were simply shocked that I knew about them and was finally saying something. There's always an excuse with Natalie. I continued, my voice steadier now, as years of observations poured out. There's always a reason why the rules don't apply to her, why her needs are more urgent, why her problems are more important, and you both enable it at every turn. That's not fair, my father began, but I cut him off. Isn't it? When was the last time either of you asked about my life, my actual life, not just a prelude to asking for something? When was the last time my accomplishments were celebrated the way Natalie's are? When was the last time? The front door opened, interrupting my tirade. Natalie breezed in, looking refreshed and cheerful in a new outfit I'd never seen before. Her smile faltered slightly when she saw me standing in the living room. Cecil, what are you doing here? Her tone suggested mild curiosity rather than the panic or shame that would have been appropriate under the circumstances. I'm here, I said coldly, because my car was towed from a casino parking lot where you abandoned it, and I had to pay nearly $2,000 to get it back. Natalie's expression shifted to one of practiced contrition. Oh my God, it got towed. I'm so sorry, bro. I thought it would be fine there for a day or two. These small towns are usually pretty relaxed about parking. A day or two, I repeated incredulously. You thought it would be fine to leave my car in a casino parking lot for days without telling me? Natalie shrugged, already moving toward the kitchen. Well, I was going to handle it, but then I met this amazing guy, Mark. He's in real estate development, super successful. We really connected, you know, like soul-level connection. I don't care if you met the reincarnation of Gandhi, I snapped. You had no right to take my car somewhere. I didn't authorize drive it when you're not on my insurance and then abandon it. She turned to face me, her expression hardening into the defensive look I knew so well. God, Cecil, it's just a car. Why are you being so dramatic? It's not like it was stolen or wrecked. It is damaged, I informed her. There's a scratch on the front bumper and a dent in the passenger door. The interior looks like a garbage dump. And yes, it was effectively stolen by you when you used it for purposes I never agreed to. Well, I didn't put the dent there, she said dismissively. Must have happened in the parking lot. Not my fault. And there it was, the Natalie special. Deny, deflect, dismiss. Never take responsibility. Never apologize sincerely. Never face consequences. I looked from her to my parents, who were watching with concerned expressions, concerned for Natalie's feelings, not for the havoc she'd wreaked on my life. $1,850. I said, my voice dangerously quiet. That's how much this little adventure cost me. Plus a day of work, plus the damage to my car, plus the stress of being called by the police at 4 a.m. I'm sure Cecil doesn't expect you to pay all that. My mother interjected quickly, giving me a pleading look. But for once, I wasn't going to be the understanding son who absorbed the impact of Natalie's chaos. Actually, I do expect exactly that, I said firmly. Every penny. The silence that followed my statement was deafening. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. My father's bushy eyebrows shot up toward his receding hairline, and Natalie laughed, a short, incredulous sound that made my blood boil. You can't be serious, she said, crossing her arms over her chest. I don't have that kind of money just lying around. Neither did I. I replied evenly until I had to empty my emergency fund to fix a problem you created. Cecil, My mother began her voice, taking on that soothing tone she always used when trying to mediate between us, which invariably meant asking me to concede. I understand you're upset, but demanding such a large sum from your sister isn't reasonable. She's a single mother, struggling to make ends meet. I turned to face her directly, and I'm your son, who works hard for everything he has, who has never asked you for financial help, who has been responsible and reliable his entire life. Why is it unreasonable to expect Natalie to fix her own mistakes, but perfectly reasonable to expect me to fix them for her? My father shifted in his recliner. Son, family helps family. That's just how it is. Is it, I challenged? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I help everyone, and no one helps me. It looks like I'm expected to sacrifice my time, my money, and my property, while Natalie sacrifices nothing. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the carefully itemized receipt from the impound lot, along with printed photos I'd taken of the damage to my car. I placed them on the coffee table, then added the parking ticket and casino receipts I'd found in the glove compartment. Here's exactly what this cost me, I said. Towing fee $500. Storage fees for 3 days at $75 per day, $225. Administrative fees, taxes, and other charges, $1,125. Total $1,850. I pointed to the photos, plus damage to the exterior that will cost at least $500 to repair and the interior that will need professional cleaning at around $300. Grand total, $2,650. Natalie scoffed. This is ridiculous. I don't have that kind of money, and you know it. Then perhaps I suggested coldly, you shouldn't have taken actions that incurred that kind of expense. What exactly do you expect me to do? She demanded, her voice rising. Magically produce $3,000. $2,650, I corrected. And yes, I expect you to take responsibility for once in your life. Sell something. Take on extra shifts. Set up a payment plan. I don't care how you do it, but you are going to make this right. My mother began to cry softly, her go-to response when family tensions escalated. Normally, this would have been my cue to back down to comfort her, to be the peacemaker. Not this time. My father stood up, his expression stormy. Now see here, Cecil, you're being completely unreasonable. Natalie made a mistake, yes, but demanding this kind of restitution is vindictive. No, Dad, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Vindictive would be pressing charges for auto theft and insurance fraud, which is what actually happened here. That stopped him cold. What are you talking about? Natalie drove my car without being listed on my insurance policy, which is illegal. She took it to a location I never authorized, and for purposes I never agreed to, which constitutes unauthorized use of a vehicle, also known as joyriding, which is a crime in Oregon. She then abandoned it, resulting in damages and fees. I have every right to file a police report. You would do that to your own sister. My mother gasped, her tears flowing freely now. After all, we've done for you. That phrase, after all we've done for you, hit me like a physical blow. What exactly had they done for me? That was so extraordinary. Provided the basic necessities of childhood, shown up at some of my life events. The implication that I owed them, unquestioning acceptance of mistreatment because they had fulfilled the basic obligations of parenthood, was the final straw. What have you done for me, Mom? I asked quietly. Really think about it. What have you done that gives Natalie the right to take advantage of me repeatedly? What have you done that makes it okay for her to steal and damage my property? What have you done that means I should absorb the cost of her irresponsibility? We raised you, my father interjected. We put food on the tablecloths on your back, a roof over your head. Yes, you did, I acknowledged. That's called being parents. It doesn't entitle you to expect me to be Natalie's permanent safety net. It doesn't give her the right to treat me with such disrespect. Natalie, who had been unusually quiet during this exchange, suddenly exploded. Oh, poor Cecil. Always the victim, always so perfect and responsible, while the rest of us are just disasters. Do you have any idea how hard it is to live in your shadow? To always be compared to Mr. Perfect, who never makes mistakes? I stared at her, genuinely baffled. Are you serious right now? When have you ever been unfavorably compared to me? When have Mom and Dad ever made you feel less important or less loved than me? They're always talking about how responsible you are, how you never ask for help, how you've got your life together, she shouted. Yes, they mention those things usually right before they ask me to help you out of whatever mess you've created, I shot back. And those aren't comparisons, Natalie. Those are facts. I am responsible. I don't ask them for help. I do have my life together. And none of those things make it okay for you to steal my car. The front door opened again, interrupting our heated exchange. My nieces and nephew filed in, accompanied by my mother's friend Barbara, who had apparently been watching them. The children froze at the threshold, their eyes wide, as they took in the tense scene before them. Mommy Emma, the oldest, said uncertainly, "Why is everyone yelling?" Natalie immediately shifted into performance mode, her expression softening as she moved to embrace her children. "Everything's fine, sweetie. Uncle Cecil and I are just having a grown-up discussion." "About your car, Uncle Cecil?" Liam asked, his small face serious. "Is it because Mommy left it at the casino and it got taken away?" The innocence of his question hung in the air like a spotlight on the truth. Natalie flushed deep red. "Liam, go take your brother and sister upstairs to play," she directed sharply. But he began. "Now, Liam." The children scurried upstairs, and Barbara, sensing the tension, made a hasty exit after a quick goodbye. Once they were gone, I turned back to my sister. "Even your children understand what happened," I said quietly. "Maybe it's time for you to grow up and understand it too." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, showing the depleted savings account and the large credit card charge. "This is real, Natalie. This isn't going away. I'm not backing down this time." For the first time, I saw genuine uncertainty in her expression. She was used to pushing until I gave in, secure in the knowledge that I valued family peace more than justice. But something was different this time. I was different. "What exactly do you want from me?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "I want you to pay me back every penny this cost me," I stated firmly. "And if you don't, I will file a police report for unauthorized use of a vehicle, file an insurance claim, naming you as the responsible party, and, if necessary, take you to small claims court." "You wouldn't?" she challenged, but with less conviction than before. "Try me," I replied simply. "This ends now. The pattern of you taking advantage of me, of everyone excusing your behavior, of me paying the price for your choices. It all ends today." My mother was openly sobbing now, while my father looked both angry and bewildered, as if he couldn't quite process this new version of his typically compliant son. "Cecil," my mother pleaded, "Natalie's children need her. If you file charges—" "I don't want to file charges," I interrupted. "I want Natalie to take responsibility for her actions. I want her to pay me back. That's it." "And if she can't pay you back all at once?" my father challenged. "Then we set up a payment plan," I replied reasonably. $300 a month until it's paid off. Natalie let out a hollow laugh. "Where am I supposed to get $300 a month? I can barely cover my bills as it is." "You seem to have money for new clothes," I observed, nodding at her outfit. "And casino outings. And weekends with men you just met. Those are choices, Natalie. Maybe it's time to make different ones." I stood up, gathering the receipts and photos from the coffee table. "I'm going to head back to Seattle now. I expect the first payment by the end of this month. We can set up a formal agreement if you prefer." "This is insane," Natalie muttered, but I noticed she didn't meet my eyes. "No," I corrected her. "What's insane is that it's taken me 34 years to stand up for myself. What's insane is that you thought there would never be consequences for treating me this way." I turned to my parents. "I love you both, but you've enabled this dynamic our entire lives. You've taught Natalie that her needs and wants always come first, and you've taught me that my feelings don't matter as long as everyone else is happy. That stops now." My father stood, his expression a mix of anger and grudging respect. "You're really going to hold your own sister financially accountable when she's struggling as a single mother?" "I'm holding her accountable as an adult who made poor choices," I replied. "Her status as a mother doesn't exempt her from responsibility. In fact, it should make her more responsible, not less." I looked around at their stunned faces, feeling a strange mixture of guilt, resolve, and unexpected liberation. For so long I'd measured my worth in this family by how much I could give, how much I could absorb, how little I could ask for in return. Standing here now demanding fairness felt simultaneously foreign and long overdue. "I'll expect to hear from you about the payment arrangement," I said, heading toward the door, where Megan waited silently, having witnessed the entire confrontation. "If I don't, I'll proceed with filing the police report." As I walked out, I heard my mother call my name, her voice breaking. I paused, but didn't turn around. "Cecil, please don't leave like this. We can work something out." "Yes," I agreed, my hand on the doorknob. "We can. And we will. But it won't be the same arrangement as before. Things are going to be different now." I stepped outside, closing the door firmly behind me. The weight of years of suppressed resentment seemed to lift slightly from my shoulders as I walked toward my damaged car, where Megan waited with a proud smile. "You did it," she said simply. "I did." I agreed, still processing the magnitude of what had just transpired. "Let's go home." The week following my confrontation with my family passed in a strange blur of silence and self-doubt. My phone remained unusually quiet, no calls from my mother checking in, no texts from my father about sports scores, not even messages from Natalie asking for favors, disguised as casual conversation. The absence of contact was simultaneously liberating and disorienting, like suddenly removing a persistent background noise you'd grown so accustomed to that you forgot it was there. "They're giving you the silent treatment," Megan observed, as we prepared dinner in my apartment 5 days after the confrontation. "It's a manipulation tactic. They're waiting for you to feel guilty and call them to apologize." I know I admitted chopping vegetables, with perhaps more force than necessary, and part of me does feel guilty. They're my family. Being family doesn't give them the right to treat you like an ATM with no feelings. Megan reminded me gently. "You didn't do anything wrong by standing up for yourself." Intellectually, I knew she was right, but emotional patterns established over decades don't dissolve in a single afternoon, no matter how cathartic. I found myself checking my phone more often than usual, composing and deleting conciliatory messages, wondering if I'd been too harsh, too demanding, too uncompromising. My friends, upon hearing the story, were unanimously supportive. My coworker Jason, who had given me the ride on that chaotic Monday morning, was particularly emphatic. "Dude, they stole your car, trashed it, abandoned it, and expected you to foot the bill without complaint," he said during our lunch break. "In what universe is that okay?" Put that way, it seemed so clear-cut. And yet, the weight of familial expectation, the ingrained habit of being the peacemaker, and the lifelong role of reliable Cecil, who never makes waves, these were harder to shed than I'd anticipated. A full week after the confrontation, my phone rang with my father's number. I stared at it for 3 rings, heart pounding, before answering with a cautious, "Hello." "Cecil." My father's voice sounded different, more subdued than I'd expected. "We need to talk about this situation." I braced myself for recriminations, for guilt trips, for the familiar pressure to capitulate for the sake of family harmony. Instead, what followed surprised me. "Your mother and I have been discussing things," he continued, his tone measured. "We may have been unfair to you over the years." I nearly dropped the phone in shock. In 34 years, I couldn't recall my father ever acknowledging unfairness, particularly not toward me. "We've also spoken with Natalie," he went on. "She's agreed to pay you back. We're going to help her set up a payment plan, $300 a month, like you suggested. She'll need to pick up some additional shifts at the boutique, and she's going to sell some of her designer bags and jewelry." I sat down on the edge of my bed, genuinely stunned. Thank you, Dad. I appreciate that." "Don't thank me," he replied gruffly. "This shouldn't have happened in the first place. Your car, your rules. We disrespected that. And Natalie. Well, she's had some hard conversations with us this week." We spoke for a few more minutes, arranging a family dinner for the following weekend to formalize the repayment agreement, and my father suggested hesitantly clear the air about some other things that have been going on for too long. When I hung up, I sat in silence for several minutes, processing this unexpected turn of events. It wasn't a complete transformation. My father hadn't suddenly become introspective or emotionally expressive, but it was an acknowledgement, a step toward change that I hadn't dared to hope for. The family dinner that Sunday was predictably awkward. My mother alternated between teary-eyed apologies and reminiscences about happier times, as if trying to remind us all of our bonds beyond this conflict. My father was more reserved but made a visible effort to ask me genuine questions about my work and life in Seattle. Natalie was subdued, avoiding eye contact for most of the meal until the time came to discuss the repayment plan. "I've worked it out with my boss to take on weekend shifts," she said, sliding a handwritten payment schedule across the table to me. "And I've already listed some of my bags and jewelry online. I should have the first payment to you by the end of the month." "Thank you," I replied, scanning the document. It was more organized and thought out than anything I'd ever seen from Natalie before. "I appreciate you taking this seriously." "I don't have much choice, do I?" she said, a hint of the old resentment flashing in her eyes. But then she sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "But I guess I deserved it. What I did wasn't fair to you. It was selfish." Hearing Natalie admit to selfishness was like witnessing a rare astronomical event, theoretically possible, but shocking to actually observe. I nodded, not wanting to push my luck by commenting further. The conversation gradually shifted to other topics, and while there were moments of tension, there were also glimpses of a healthier dynamic. My mother asked about Megan with genuine interest, rather than as a prelude to a request. My father mentioned a problem with his computer, without automatically assuming I would fix it. Natalie talked about her children's activities, without hinting at needing financial assistance for them. It wasn't a miraculous transformation, but it was a beginning. As I drove back to Seattle that evening, I felt a cautious optimism that perhaps things could actually change. Over the following months, those cautious hopes were tested, but not entirely disappointed. Natalie made her payments consistently, though occasionally a few days late. My mother called me periodically, just to check in sometimes, without mentioning Natalie at all, a first in our family dynamic. My father sent a text when my company was featured in a local business publication, showing he'd been paying attention when I mentioned the project. 3 months after the confrontation, I took my nieces and nephew for a day at the Seattle Aquarium without Natalie present another first. As we watched luminous jellyfish pulse through eerily lit tanks, 8-year-old Emma looked up at me with serious eyes. "Mommy says she has to be more responsible now," she informed me solemnly. "She says Uncle Cecil taught her an important lesson." My heart squeezed at her words. "Did she seem angry about that lesson?" I asked carefully. Emma considered this, her small brow furrowed in concentration. "No, not angry. More like, when my teacher makes me redo my math problems. When I rush and make mistakes. It's annoying, but also good, I guess." Out of the mouths of babes, I thought with a smile. That's a pretty good way to look at it. My relationship with Megan deepened through this period as well. Having witnessed me stand up for myself, something she'd been gently encouraging for months seemed to strengthen her respect for me, and in turn my confidence in our relationship. 6 months after the car incident, I found myself browsing engagement rings during lunch breaks, imagining a future with someone who saw me clearly and valued my worth without conditions. The journey wasn't always smooth. There were still moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves, a hint from my mother that Natalie was struggling with the payment schedule, a comment from my father suggesting I was being a bit harsh about enforcing deadlines. But each time I held firm to my boundaries, and gradually, remarkably, they began to respect them. Perhaps the most profound change was internal. I began to recognize the people-pleasing tendencies that had shaped my identity since childhood, the ways I'd measured my worth by my usefulness to others, rather than my inherent value as a person. In therapy, something I'd started a month after the confrontation, I explored the roots of these patterns and began the slow work of rewriting my internal scripts. I realized that setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was necessary for healthy relationships. I understood that allowing people to face the consequences of their actions wasn't cruel. It was respectful of their autonomy as adults. I discovered that my value wasn't determined by how much I could give or how little I could take, but by the authenticity and mutuality of my connections. Family relationships are complex ecosystems, shaped by years of interactions, expectations, and unspoken rules. Changing those systems is never quick or easy, but sometimes a single moment of truth, a refusal to continue unhealthy patterns, can create ripples that gradually transformed the entire landscape. That day when I confronted my family about my car wasn't just about $1,800 in towing fees or damaged upholstery. It was about dignity, respect, and the courage to insist on being treated as a full and equal member of my family, not just a convenient resource to be tapped when needed and ignored when not. The journey continues with setbacks and progress misunderstandings, and moments of genuine connection. But the old pattern has been disrupted, and in its place, something healthier has begun to grow slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. Sometimes the hardest confrontations lead to the most necessary healing. Sometimes standing your ground is the greatest act of love for yourself, and for those who need to learn that true family means respect flowing in all directions, not just from the most accommodating member to everyone else. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of your generosity? How did you handle it, and what was the outcome? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more real-life lessons, and share with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Remember, setting healthy boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for genuine relationships built on mutual respect. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you navigate your own family dynamics with courage and wisdom.